All right, we got more illegal firings at the DOJ. This on top of the DOJ clearly covering up Tom Homan's obvious crimes. I go over that in detail in my other video. You can watch that if you want. But no, these people weren't fired because, oh, maybe they supported the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago after Trump spent a year trying to lie to NARA and defrauding the DOJ. No, it wasn't that. This time, it was actually about one of my favorite people ever, Jack Smith, Special Counsel Jack Smith. Right? And this isn't surprising, of course. I just find this clip of Lindsey Graham trying to justify it and then turn the tables, like using this to say, oh, that was bad, but us going after James Comey is really good. I find that really funny, and he gets so much stuff wrong here. It's just, I love clips where just like right-wingers just can't stop getting things wrong. It's super entertaining to me. Here's the clip.
Apparently, Jack Smith, through FBI agents, went to the phone company that I use and 7 other senators to monitor who we called, where we were located, and how long we talked to them. Now, in January of 2021, I was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, trying to find out whether to certify the election and what to investigate, if anything. So the idea that the executive branch would try to monitor my phone calls doing my job as a United States Senator obliterates separation of powers. And to this idea about people shouldn't be looking at Comey, that's crazy. 5 years ago, I went on television right after he testified. I don't believe him when he says he doesn't remember the intel community told him that they had evidence that Hillary Clinton was trying to cook this up to suggest that Trump was an agent of Russia, that it was coming from the Clinton campaign. And we all know the Steele dossier was a piece of garbage. And he said, Comey, if I knew then what I know now, I'd have never used it to get a warrant against Carter Page. I believe he did know then what he did now. And as to Jack Smith, he tried to release his brief accusing Trump of a crime 10 days before the election, violating every protocol of the Department of Justice. His investigation, I think, was political. Within 3 days of Trump announcing I'm running for president in 2022 for the 2024 cycle, and within 3 days, charges were brought, and within 8 months, he was charged with 91 felony counts in 4 jurisdictions after he said I'm running for president. This, in my view, was an effort to destroy his chances to get elected in 2024. And when Jack Smith was looking at my phone records and that of other senators, I think he broke the law, and I think he needs to be held accountable. And I think those who brought this about need to pay. And
all right, I got so much content to go over there. He touched on all of the greatest hits, right? But even if the whole thing was a sham, that doesn't even come close to meeting the RIF statutes for when you can fire someone. So regardless, unless these employees were engaged in some kind of fraud, you cannot fire them for being a part of an investigation that you haven't even proven is a farce, right? You can say it was politically motivated, whatever, you haven't proven that. Let's do first things first, right? So is it a violation of separation of powers for the executive branch via the DOJ to look into Lindsey Graham's communications on the days surrounding January 6th if they're doing an investigation on January 6th? And the answer is yes. Why do I say that? Because they had to get a grand jury subpoena. They didn't just raid Lindsey Graham's office looking at his stuff. That's clearly illegal. The fact that he says it's illegal, knowing that there was a subpoena for all this stuff. There were so many subpoenas under Jack Smith, right? And all of them got approved through due process, right? So you can't even, and by the way, I think there's a statute. I think it's 28533. The DOJ can do, whatever it needs to within these processes to investigate crimes against the United States, even if they are done by the executive branch or the president himself. That's where the whole idea of a special counsel comes from, right? And by the way, him saying that special counsel Jack Smith was appointed 3 days after Donald Trump announced his run. It's like, yeah, that's the point. Do you know what a special counsel is? It's an independent prosecutor, apart from the DOJ. What is your prosecution of James Comey? It is within the DOJ. You are blatantly using a DOJ prosecutor to go after this guy, in a way that Donald Trump has made very clear is his, political opponent. He wants to punish his political opponents, right? So it would be better if they got a special prosecutor to do the Comey prosecution, because guess what? They throw it in the garbage. And then he talks about Jack Smith releasing his brief 10 days before the election. Guys, this brief was released by Tanya Chutkan, right? So there was this Supreme Court case, United States versus Trump, very aptly named, and it essentially redefined or defined for the first time, contrary to what many conservative commentators said about the case itself, what executive immunity is, and it was a crackpot case, horrible decision, and essentially Jack Smith had to completely redo his case and present a brief to Tanya Chutkan as to how his statutes are to fit within the executive immunity guidelines that were just dropped by the Supreme Court. So he submitted that brief, and because all that stuff around these prosecutions is to remain public unless you have a really good reason in the court system, right? We're outside the DOJ right now. This is a judge, then it must be public, right? Unless you're protecting someone's privacy or, executive privilege, etc. So it wasn't Jack Smith releasing that, it was Tanya Chutkan, and just another blatant lie, right? And James Comey saying that he didn't remember Hillary Clinton approving a plan to tie Trump to Russia. Again, we know that plan comes from the SVR. That's essentially the Russians, internal intelligence agency. They come up with a lot of crackpot stuff. The SVR is the same agency in Russia that came up with, the idea that Hillary Clinton had COPD, ischemic heart disease, deep vein thrombosis, type 2 diabetes. This agency makes up stuff all the time. The Durham Annex makes it very clear that there's no confidence that all this stuff is correct, and James Comey was briefed on it. It was just so inconsequential he probably didn't remember it. Basically the brief just said, we got some emails that maybe that these, this Russian intelligence agency got the gist through some of its, intelligence gathering activities that maybe Hillary Clinton approved a plan, an election plan, not an FBI plan or some kind of deep state plan, to tie Trump to Russia in the eyes of the electorate to have a better chance of winning the election. That's all that was. Nothing illegal, right? And that is not even what the James Comey case is about, right? So another blatant misrepresentation of the facts there. The James Comey case is about the idea that James Comey authorized the leak of an investigation into the Clinton Foundation, even though James Comey is supposedly a deep state actor acting against Trump, but he authorized a leak that helped Trump win the election. Oh wait, that doesn't make any sense, right? So none of this makes any sense, guys. The DOJ here it's off the rails, even more off the best evidence I have really is the Tom Homan thing. Watch my video on that if you don't know the story, because I haven't seen much coverage of it. I missed it myself, even though I try to follow stuff pretty closely. I only really heard about it in detail after the JD Vance clip came out. So you can go watch that if you want. And notice how they keep saying the same stuff. It's been 9 years, guys. Why can't you get the basic stuff about the Steele dossier correct? The Steele dossier was known to nobody until months after the election when it was released by BuzzFeed. The Hillary Clinton campaign had full rights to it. They could have released it any time they wanted, but they didn't, right? And then there's no evidence they paid for it directly. There's no evidence that Clinton even knew about it, and there's certainly no evidence that they formulated any content within it, right? It all came from Christopher Steele's sources, right? Nothing to do with the Clinton campaign. Just so many things that need to stop. It's how you know that one party is objectively out to trick people. I have no other explanation for it. If you actually spend time reading source material, I don't know how you could come to any other conclusion than what I've come to, but it makes it no less fun. Maybe I wonder if politics in other countries is as cooked as this. Maybe Germany, but probably not Canada and Australia. At least they're conservative candidates. They're just talking about school vouchers and whatever, oil. This is a whole nother level where the president there's still a chance that Trump knew about Russia and wanted to have them help him win the election. I'd say it's the majority chance even. Mueller makes it very clear in his report. He obstructed the investigation in so many ways, Trump did, that we have no idea if he colluded with Russia, guys. Mueller says that. If anyone says the Mueller report, says Trump is innocent, they have not read volume 2 of the Mueller report. It's very fun to read.